The Amazing Spider-Man is, without question, one of the most recognizable and beloved superhero characters ever created, and his roster of villains is also highly recognizable, consisting of some of the most colorful, compelling, and eccentric antagonists you'll find in the comic book medium. Spider-Man's rogues gallery is simply incredible, it's stacked, and rivaled only by DC's Batman. Today, I will be ranking the top 10 greatest villains of Spider-Man, which is no easy task. He has so many excellent antagonists, there are so many to choose from, that narrowing this list down to just 10 choices will prove difficult. But these 10 characters I have picked are the best of the best in my opinion. These are my favorites, the ones I feel have played the role of villain the most effectively within Spider-Man stories. I guarantee some of your choices will be absent from this list. It's inevitable, but this is my list. We all have different tastes when it comes to villains. They each connect with us on different levels, so don't take it too personally. Okay, so starting off this list at number 10, we have William Baker, aka Flint Marko, and more notably, the Sandman. He has the power to manipulate his body, which is made of sand, in a variety of ways. He can harden himself, grow in size by absorbing more sand into his body, and can transform his limbs into weapons, such as a sledgehammer or spiked mace. Though he was originally depicted as a simple brute, more layers have been added to his character in recent decades. Baker had a troubled childhood, neglected by his parents, was bullied, and then would become a bully himself, developing violent tendencies, and would eventually turn to a life of crime. The Sandman's abilities have always been unique and visually interesting to me. There are a lot of cool things you can do with him. Next up at number 9 is Max Dillon, Electro. He's one of the first villains that pops into my head when I think of Spider-Man. Debuting in The Amazing Spider-Man number 9 from 1964, Electro has the ability to manipulate electricity, the result of being struck by a bolt of lightning. Dillon is basically a walking capacitor that needs to feed off energy to sustain himself. The more energy he absorbs, the stronger he becomes, making his max power level essentially limitless. He's definitely one of Spider-Man's more powerful adversaries, and you could view him as one of the strongest Marvel characters as well. Moving on to number 8 with the psychopathic and sadistic Carnage, the symbiote offspring of Venom that bonded with serial killer Cletus Cassidy, fusing with his bloodstream. When Carnage hit the scene in 1992, I think it signaled a bit of a shift in how Spider-Man stories were told. They started implementing some darker aspects, tried pushing a few more disturbing boundaries. I mean, Cletus Cassidy was Marvel's response to grittier and mentally unhinged characters such as the Joker. The Ravencroft Institute where he was imprisoned is basically the Arkham Asylum of the Marvel Universe. Carnage is an incredibly popular Marvel villain. A lot of people seem to enjoy him. He's violent, unpredictable. What's not to love about an antagonist like this? Some of you might be surprised that I put Carnage so low on this list, but I just enjoy several other Spider-Man villains more. It's that simple. Coming in at number 7 is Dr. Kurt Connors, and more specifically, his darker, animalistic side of his personality, the Lizard. The Lizard is one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains, and I had to include him on this list. I love the movie monster qualities to this character, the fun transformation visuals that are shown in stories featuring him, but also the deeper stuff discussed as well, the clashing of these two personalities, the inner turmoil that is going on within Connors, and of course, him having to deal with the consequences of the Lizard's actions, what kind of a toll that has on not only his body and mind, but those around him as well. I would recommend you check out my review of Shed I did a while back on the channel. It's an interesting story, and I'm sure I'll be talking about this character again very soon, so sit tight. Next up at number 6 is the menacing Mysterio. I have spoken at great lengths about this character before on the channel. I've done a separate villain breakdown on him, reviewed a few of his video game appearances, and even the storyline Daredevil, Guardian Devil from 1998, if you want to check those out. But know that Mysterio is my all-time favorite villain, spanning all of comics. I love his costume, his sense of showmanship, his backstory and origin involving the special effects industry, the fact that he doesn't possess any superpowers and has to essentially invent his own, and of course, the whole idea surrounding illusions, mind games to fuck with his opponents. Villains like these have always struck a chord with me, for whatever reason. Mysterio is my all-time favorite villain, and he is my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think he's the best. There is a clear difference, hence why he is not number 1. At number 5, we have Kraven the Hunter, in my opinion, one of the coolest and most fascinating villains in the superhero genre. He is a world-renowned big-game hunter that has fought, killed, and captured the deadliest animals known to man. To prove himself as the greatest of all time, he has chosen to hunt Spider-Man, who he views as the ultimate challenge for his skills. What's interesting about Kraven is that he lives by a strong code of honor. He's not like a lot of other villains who implement underhanded tactics to win. Kraven wants every fight, every battle to be fair for both parties. That's the only way he feels victory is truly achieved. One of my favorite Spider-Man storylines ever is Fearful Symmetry, Kraven's Last Hunt, from 1987. If you want to see what Kraven is all about, in one of his strongest appearances, one that many have argued should have been his last, then check out my review of it sometime. Moving on to number 4, we have J. Jonah Jameson. You heard me right. JJJ is one of the best antagonists found within Spider-Man stories. Ever since the beginning, he has slandered Spider-Man in the Daily Bugle's tabloid newspapers, deeming him a menace rather than a hero, endangering the lives of more people than he saves. Jameson hates costumed superheroes, Spider-Man in particular. He views them as cowardly, hiding behind their masks, not taking any responsibility for their actions, which you don't need me to tell you is a brilliant spin on the motivations fueling Peter Parker. On top of his ongoing smear campaign against Spider-Man, Jameson was partially responsible for other notable Spider-Man villains, such as the Scorpion. He had helped finance Dr. Farley Stillwell's experiment that transformed Mac Gargan into a super criminal. In addition, Jameson had also funded Professor Spencer Smythe, the inventor of the Spider Slayer robots. He even piloted a few of the models to hunt down Spider-Man himself, in full view of the public, which begs the question, how has this man not been arrested yet? At number 3, I have chosen Venom, one of the most popular Marvel villains, for good reason. Audiences gravitate towards his hulking physicality, unique personality, violent and brutal behavior, and of course, his strong rivalry with Spider-Man, playing the role of a dark reflection of Peter Parker, one of the most effective in comics, might I add. I assume we all know the basic gist of the black-suited Spider-Man by now, the alien symbiote that bonded with Peter Parker while he was in outer space during the events of the 1984 storyline Secret Wars that augmented his abilities, but sought to permanently bond with him. Thankfully, Peter managed to separate the creature from his body, but it would find a new host in Eddie Brock. While bonded with Spider-Man, the symbiote fed off Peter's want to be a hero, whereas with Eddie, it fed off his rage and hatred towards Spider-Man for destroying his career, working as a reporter for the Daily Bugle's rival newspaper, the Daily Globe. Venom might be number 3 on my list of greatest Spider-Man villains, but these top 3 characters I have chosen, all 3 of them are basically interchangeable. It all depends on what kind of Spider-Man story you prefer. Next up at number 2 is Dr. Otto Octavius, also known as Dr. Octopus. He is one of Spider-Man's longest-running foes, having originally appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 3 from July of 1963. What I enjoy so much about the Doc Ock character is that he is a match for the Webhead on not only a physical level, but a mental level as well. Octavius is gifted with a brilliant scientific mind, making him an intellectual equal to Peter Parker in many ways. Doc Ock has proven to be a cunning strategist, evident by his days as the Master Planner, and of course, the leader of many incarnations of the Sinister Six. Octavius had also at one point grown close to May Parker, attempting to marry her so that he could acquire an island housing a nuclear reactor that she had unknowingly inherited. Dr. Octopus has had a lot of ups and downs as a character throughout the decades. He has gone through various different transformations, too much to cover here, but despite all of it, he remains one of Spider-Man's best villains, hands down. And to cap off this list at number 1, I have chosen the Green Goblin, without a doubt the greatest villain Spider-Man has ever faced. Not only do I enjoy this character for the concept alone, the whole Halloween motif and everything, but for what Goblin has done to Spider-Man, Peter Parker as well. Tragedy follows this hero wherever he goes. It's what makes him so relatable and compelling, and the Green Goblin has been the one to cause a lot of these losses. He has taken the most personal shots at Spider-Man than any other villain in my opinion. Honestly, there's not much else I can really say about him that I haven't already said before on the channel. The Green Goblin is one of the greatest antagonists in the superhero genre, one of the best Marvel has ever featured in its stories, and without a doubt, the very best when it comes to Spider-Man. I was going to include the Hobgoblin in this video as well, but at the end of the day, he just didn't make the final cut. Including one Goblin character from the Marvel Universe felt like enough, and having him take up another slot on this list would have been a little derivative and unnecessary in my opinion, especially taking into account I included both Venom and Carnage on this list as well. Anywho, this has been my look at the 10 greatest villains of Spider-Man. If I missed any characters you would have included, just leave them in the comment section down below. If you would like to help support the channel and its content, hit that subscribe button and become a producer over on patreon.com if you can. Any and all financial backing goes a long way in making all of these video projects a reality. I will see you all in the next one. Take care and stay nerdy.